Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we got another news video to discuss. We got a lot of things to discuss here today. We got a couple of signings, including ones in Nashville and Chicago. We have a couple of waiver updates. We have a couple of injury updates. We have huge pieces of news, including something around Utah getting a new NHL team, as well as the 2018 World Junior scandal. We have a little bit more updates on that, so we'll touch on that. And we also have a couple of trade rumors involving the Bolts, the Panthers, Kings, Penguins, and could the Carolina Hurricanes acquire Jordan Binnington? We'll get to all of that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Internet Talking Channel. Before we get into it, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for all of your support. I've never been able to do this with all of you guys. Don't forget to subscribe so we can reach 50 subscribers, or leave a comment down in the comment section below, leaving your opinion on all we discussed in today's video. Now, as usual, I'm going to start off by discussing a couple of signings from the past couple of days. There were definitely a couple of interesting signings, not overly huge signings, but definitely some interesting ones. First, in Chicago, we had them extend yet another one of their veterans. We talked about this when we were talking about the Jason Dickinson signing, how this was a possibility. They have extended Peter Mrazek, a 2-year contract with the AV at $4.25 million. So not overly surprised this happened. Mrazek's actually been quite a good goaltender this year. Has a 12-17-1 record with a .907 save percentage. For a horrible Blackhawks season tied for the worst record in the NHL, that's actually pretty good given the fact he's putting up league average goaltending. So I think Mrazek's definitely found a home in Chicago. It could have been dealt for probably like a 3rd or 4th round pick at the deadline. So it's not overly surprising they wound up signing him, but they still could have dealt him for like a pick, so not overly surprised that happened. Mrazek's another really good team player who's definitely fitting extremely well. Now, all these deals that they've signed, Foligno, Dickinson, Mrazek, are only 2-year deals, so they're going to be there for the rest of this year, probably most of next year too, I would think, and then the year after they will probably consider trading them again. But for the time being, those three, Foligno, Dickinson, Mrazek, who are all pending UFAs, are going to be staying. I know probably all three of those guys are also overpayments. Mrazek at $4.25 million, what he's probably getting like $1.5 to $2 million on the open market. Same thing with Dickinson. Foligno's probably getting only like $1 to $1.5 million on the open market. Him getting $4.5 million. So all three are big overpayments. But the Hawks have lots of cap space over the next couple of years' time, and they need players to play there as stopgap players over the next couple of years while they continue to build this really winning prospect around Connor Bedard. So this is a pretty good move in my opinion. This is a fantastic deal for the Blackhawks for Mrazek. I definitely don't think Mrazek was getting this sort of money on the open market when he hit free agency this offseason. So I think this was a really good move for Mrazek to sign a deal where he's getting a $4.25 million. I think this was a really good deal for the Blackhawks to get a solid stabilizing goaltender for the next year or two, while they have prospects like Gajan and Kameso continuing to develop over in juniors or in college. So very good stuff there for the Blackhawks. I think this is a fantastic signing. So very good stuff there for the Blackhawks. Mrazek's been a fantastic goaltender ever since being there. His numbers are a lot better than they were last year. He's been a very good stabilizing netminder, and he's going to be a fantastic goaltender for the Hawks for the rest of this year plus the next couple of years. This is a really good signing there for the Blackhawks, but it's another one of the pending UFAs that we have to take off the trade list for the Blackhawks. And then we also saw another guy get signed, which was Nashville Predators forward Cole Smith. Now, Smith is a decent bomb 6 forward, plays mostly on the 4th line. He can play 3rd line minutes if need be. He's more of a decent bomb 6 forward, not someone who's going to put up a ton of points, but definitely someone who's done pretty well. He's got a career high so far this year in goals with 5. Last year he had 4 goals, 13 assists, and 17 points in 69 games. This year has 5 goals and 11 assists, 16 points in 46 games, so he's 23 games played behind last year's games played total, and he's only 1 point back of last year's game total, so there's a very likely chance that he probably hits and passes his career high in points. He was an undrafted player, so the Preds wound up grabbing him, and he's been a really good fit in Nashville. He's definitely done really, really well, so I think this is a really good fit in my opinion for Nashville. He's worked really well over the past year. Last year he had a fantastic year. This year he's having a pretty good season too. Like I said, more of a bomb 6 forward, has a little bit of grit to his game, so he's a very good player who is definitely sort of your typical bomb 6 forward, but he can also put up some points too. So this is a really good sign in my opinion. 2 years, $1 million. If it doesn't work out, then they can always bury him in the minors. It's not a really bad deal. So this is a really good deal in my opinion for the Predators. Very good signing for Nashville to get this sort of a deal done, and they are able to keep Smith for the next couple of years. So Smith signs a 2-year deal with an AAV of $1 million. Decent signing, good bomb 6 forward, and he should be able to help the Preds out over the next couple of years. Blackhawks signed Mrazek to a 2-year deal with a $4.5 million AAV. Pretty good deal as well. Overpayment for sure, but Mrazek's going to be a fantastic 1A goaltender for the Hawks for the next couple of years while some of their prospects continue to develop. So really good signs there for the Predators and Blackhawks to get a couple of players locked in on 2-year contract extensions. Next, going over to a quick waiver update here from the past couple of days. Now, as usual, I'm going to talk here about some of the waiver updates that I've had over the past couple of days. So we said that on Tuesday, the Oilers replaced Adam Erne on waivers. The Canadiens replaced Mitchell Stevens on waivers. Stevens, due to the fact that the Canadiens were getting a little bit healthier on the forward group. Erne, given the fact that they needed cap space to sign Corey Perry. Both guys wound up clearing just like we thought they would. Erne, like I said, is a decent bomb 6 forward. Can be a decent guy, but he's not as good as a bomb 6 forward as a guy like Corey Perry. On top of that, Mitchell Stevens is a decent depth forward at this point in time, but he's not a really good NHL bomb 6 forward at this point in time, so I was expected both of these guys to wind up clearing, given the fact that Stevens is probably more of an AHL defenseman at this point in time. And for the Edmonton Oilers, I didn't expect anyone to claim Erne, given the fact he was a very late signing before the season started, and they both wound up clearing. So not surprised there. Erne will go back down to the minors for the Oilers, Stevens for the Canadiens, and both those guys will probably go and continue to play in the AHL. And both guys, I think, have a really good chance of possibly being call-up options if they run into injuries. But also on top of that, we got 2 more waiver placements yesterday, and that was that the Kailyev Flames replaced Mrazek and Nick DeSimone on waivers for the purpose of being demoted to the minors. Now they're sort of, I think, starting to realize that this season's probably lost after having 3-game losing streak, going back down to 500. They're probably not going to make the playoffs this year, so they call up a couple of their young prospects, including guys like Matt Coronado, Adam Klapka, amongst others. So they sent some of these guys up, so they're sending some of these guys down too. Nick DeSimone, decent 7th defenseman / AHL defenseman. He's probably not someone who's probably going to get claimed. I think he's in the final year of his deal. He's making close to league minimum, so maybe if there's a team out there who really needs some D help, they can pick him up off of waivers. But I'll probably say DeSimone clears. Like I say, he's more of an older defenseman, not someone who's probably an NHL regular at this point in time. Will probably be more of a spare defenseman at this point in time. So it will be interesting to see if there is someone who winds up claiming him, but I would expect him to probably wind up clearing. As for Mrazek, I could definitely see someone claim him. Mrazek, I think, in the final year of a 2-year deal that has an AAV of $763 million, so it's just under, I think, league minimum at this point in time. Mrazek is a fantastic bomb 6 forward. He's fallen out of favor a little bit this year with the Calgary Flames. He's been mostly a 4th line forward, but I think he still has some potential of being a solid 3rd line forward. I could see a team who has some interest in adding a bomb 6 forward, who want to add a younger bomb 6 forward, add a guy like Mrazek. Like I said, he's not an overly young prospect anymore, but he's a really good, young, versatile bomb 6 forward who I think has the potential of being a solid 3rd line forward at NHL level. I think he's sort of fallen out of favor with the Calgary Flames, with the Flames trying to add some young players like Zary and Coronado to the mix in Calgary. So with that in mind, I don't think it's overly surprising that Mrazek is on waivers, but I also wouldn't be overly surprised if he wound up clearing waivers. So just to recap here, the waivers, Erne and Stevens both cleared. Erne in Edmonton, Stevens in Montreal. They'll both go to the minors and be call-up options over the next little while. And then the Flames yesterday placed Mrazek and DeSimone on waivers. Not exactly sure the outcome, given the fact that the waivers have not finished yet, but I would expect DeSimone to probably clear, just given the fact that he's more of an AHL defenseman, if I'm correct, at this point in time, and I will definitely expect him to clear, while I think there's a very strong chance that Mrazek could wind up being claimed by a team who needs some bomb 6 help. So definitely, it'll be interesting to see. But it's a risky move by the Flames to move Mrazek on waivers, and we'll see if it pays off and he clears, or if there's a team out there who winds up taking him. So it'll be interesting to see. But I expect DeSimone to clear. Mrazek, I would expect to probably wind up being claimed, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Next, going over to the injury update from the last couple of days. Austin Watson in Tampa has a lower body injury and is out week to week. Andrei Svechnikov has an upper body injury and is out week to week. Matt Dumba's upper body injury is out for an unknown period of time, while Mario Ferraro and Craig Smith both have undisclosed injuries that are out for an unknown period of time. Well, we saw Lyubushkin in Anaheim, Jeff Skinner in Buffalo, Ryan Reeves in Toronto, Philip Grubauer in Seattle, Aiden Hill, and Daniel Miromanov in Vegas, Rasmus Sandin in Washington, Tyler Pearson in Montreal, Frederick Gaudreau in Minnesota, all wind up clearing the play, and I'll go back into game action. That's really good stuff there to see for those players. And then we also saw Zemgias Girgensons have an upper body injury. Matthias Samuelsson has an undisclosed injury. Girgenson's out for an unknown period of time. Samuelsson out day. Falk has a lower body injury and is out day for the Blues. And Morrissey has a lower body injury and is out unknown period of time for the Jets. So really bad injury updates there for some of those players. But then we also saw Nick Schmaltz in Arizona, Barkov in Florida, Engvall in NYI, Dunn in Seattle, Palat in Jersey, and also Lehkonen in Colorado all be cleared to play and all get back in the game action. So really good stuff there to see for those guys, and love to see that those guys are back to being healthy. But those are really all the injury updates from the past couple of days. Really bad injury updates to see guys like Watson go down with an injury, as is Dumba, as is Ferraro. Really bad to see all those guys go down with injuries, but also really good to see guys like Lehkonen get back in the game action, Dunn, Barkov, Schmalz, Hill, Grubauer, Skinner, amongst others. So very good stuff there. Lots of good injury updates here on this day, but still a couple of bad injury updates, and hopefully those guys aren't going to be out for an overly long period of time. And next, going over to a couple of huge pieces of news that we've had over the past couple of days. First, with the 2018 World Junior team. It's definitely the biggest story that happened yesterday. So for those of you who don't know, in the 2018 World Juniors, the Team Canada won the championship. After that, there was apparently a report of a sexual assault that happened afterwards. Not exactly sure all the details, because we still don't exactly know all the details that have happened yet, but apparently it was swept under the rug. There was very little that heard about this until about a couple of years ago, and then there was a lot of investigations that went in. I think the NHL did their own investigation. The London police did their investigation. According to Elliot Friedman, who did touch on this yesterday on the Jeff Merrick show, the NHL couldn't really do anything until there were some sort of charges being pressed by the London police, and up until that point, up until yesterday, there hadn't been anything there, so there was nothing really the NHL could do to try and sort of ban any of those NHL players. There was a lot of talk that there were going to be lengthy suspensions for any of those players involved in the sexual assault scandal, and Hockey Canada sort of changed the face of Hockey Canada to where it is right now. So definitely, it seemed like there was going to be some sort of punishment, but until the London police were able to sort of press charges or something, it doesn't seem like there was going to be anything happening. And then according to a couple of reports yesterday, there was a lot of talk that the London police were talking about 5 players, and they were asking them to surrender and go to London. And Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick put this in a really good context, saying that it's the end of one situation and the beginning of another. So it's going to be a situation we have to watch out for. It's definitely going to be interesting to see. Now, I'm not going to say these are the 5 players accused, but definitely until they're proven guilty, it's not definitely guaranteed. But it's interesting to note that there are 5 players who have taken leave of absence over the past couple of days that are linked to the 2018 World Junior team. That includes Dylan Dubé in Calgary, Carter Hart in Philadelphia, McLeod and Foote, who took leave of absences yesterday from New Jersey, and Alex Formanton, who took his leave of absence from over in Europe. Now, I'm not going to say these are the 5 players who are being accused of anything. I'm not exactly sure if even they have the leave of absences are related to the 2018 World Junior stuff, so I'm not exactly sure if those are the 5 players who are the guilty party possibly, but it's definitely going to be an interesting situation to show for. All we know is that the 5 players who apparently have been linked to this have been told to surrender and go to London, so it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. It's definitely a really hot topic, been over the past year and a half, as they've been trying to figure out exactly what happened and exactly what sort of punishment should be coming from this. There's been a lot of talk from over the past little while that there should be around 5 players that were sort of involved in this, and that there probably would be lengthy suspensions for those guys who were involved. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. We don't even know what's going to happen. We don't even know if those are the 5 players, but I do know that there were 5 players that were linked to that sort of scandal from the 2018 World Junior team that have been asked to surrender and go to London. And it sounds like they may have a verdict sometime soon. According to Elliot Friedman, I think it was, or maybe someone else I saw post this, that the London police was going to have a media conference, I think, on February 5th, which is just after the All-Star break. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for over the next week or two to see if those are indeed the 5 players who were the 5 players who were asked to surrender. And it'll also be interesting to see if there's any charges pressed against them. I guess there probably would be. And if so, what sort of punishment does the NHL give those 5 players for what happened in 2018? So it's going to be a really interesting situation to watch out for, but at least you have some more information on that 2018 World Juniors thing, and at least some of the wheels are finally moving so we can get some of this done, as it's been dragging on for way too long. It's been a horrible, long process, and I'm sure all the people want their justice for whoever was involved in that situation. So hopefully this situation will be figured out in the not too distant future, and will eventually be able to be settled, and eventually we'll figure out exactly what happened and what the punishment will be for those 5 players. But it sounds like those 5 players are going to be heading to London, and hopefully we'll get some more updates in the not too distant future. But that's definitely a huge breakthrough in the case, and it definitely could lead to some pretty lengthy punishments for some of those players. So we'll have to wait and see, but I definitely hope that the punishment is deserved for those 5 players who are part of that 2018 World Junior team. So it will be an interesting situation to watch out for. for. But we also got another big piece of news yesterday, and that was from the Utah team. Now, the father group of the Utah Jazz has asked the NHL to initiate an expansion process. Now, this is an extraordinarily big development. Now, this has two possibilities of it. One, the NHL's already put out a statement here saying that they've liked their conversations with Utah Jazz owner Ryan Smith. They liked his investment in the community and trying to bring a team to Utah, and they said they continue to work with him. They said talking to him over the past couple of years, they definitely liked what he's sort of been bringing. It definitely seems like Utah's bound to get a team. Now, one of the things that's interesting to note is that the fact that they said that the Delta Center, which I've talked about in previous videos talking about expansion, it is a stopgap option for a team. They said that they could definitely have a team in there as early as next year to sort of play next year until the new arena, which they're building for the Olympics, is finished. So it sounds like there's a very likely shot that they could have a team in there as early as next year. And there's a lot of people who have speculated that this not only could be a possibility to try and get a new expansion team in Utah, but it could also be a shot at the Arizona Coyotes to try and get the act together. We know that they've been talks since probably, I think, around November or December, that the Arizona Coyotes have until end of January to around the All-Star break to have something finalized in Arizona and some piece of land finally given out. And if not, that they could be a relocation possibility. Utah was the main team to be linked to Arizona to take them via relocation. So given the fact that they said they could take a team as early as next year in the Delta Center until their new arena is built, the NHL could wind up relocating Arizona to Utah if they wind up finding that they can't find a piece of land. There's been a lot of talk recently. There was the one piece of land that they said they were trying to get over in Mesa. It was like a couple of months ago. I think it was in like June or July. There was also some talk that they were trying to purchase a piece of land. I've also seen some people say that they are looking at a site that's possibly a bidding site. A lot of people in Arizona have interest in adding, so it's not guaranteed they will get that. So there's been a lot of talk from Arizona, but nothing's really been shown. And we're exactly a week away from the start of February, and we're just over a week away from the start of the All-Star game. So it's definitely going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. It's a very likely possibility that the Arizona Coyotes could wind up moving to the Utah area. It's possible. Now, I'm not saying it's a guarantee. If it's not, and Arizona does find a piece of land, then I expect the NHL, after Arizona finds their home, to open up the expansion process. And it's a very likely possibility that other cities like Atlanta, who have said before that they could definitely get a third team. Kevin Weeks has even posted a couple of more cryptic tweets about Atlanta. We've also seen some reports saying that Atlanta is very, very invested in bringing an NHL team to their new arena that they're building. So definitely I would think Atlanta would have some interest. We've heard Houston before. We know they recently were developing some ice equipment to place into the Toyota Center that would allow them to play hockey games in the Toyota Center, so that could be an option there for the NHL too. I've seen people say KC, Quebec City, maybe some other places, Milwaukee, Portland, some other places as well. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for, but there would probably be a ton of interested parties, and then if the NHL were to open an expansion process, and it would definitely probably not take really recent time. My guess would be if they open the expansion process, we're still another 3 to 5 years away from getting an NHL team, but still, it's an interesting situation to watch out for. Does Utah get a team via expansion? Do they get the relocation of the Arizona Coyotes if the Coyotes don't get an NHL arena? Once again, just like the NHL 2018 World Junior thing, this is going to be a huge, interesting situation to watch out for over the next 2 weeks, because if the Arizona Coyotes can't find a spot for a new team, I think there's a very likely chance we could see an announcement that the Arizona Coyotes could be moving to Utah. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. It's not guaranteed Arizona's getting moved. It's not guaranteed they can't find a situation to watch out for, but it's definitely something that we're going to have to watch out for. And it's a very likely possibility at one time, with nothing being announced, that Arizona could definitely get moved. And if they don't, maybe we have to watch out for the NHL to possibly open the expansion process and possibly see some more NHL teams in the NHL. And it's definitely coming. It's eventually going to happen, but maybe it sort of happens quicker with Utah asking the NHL to open the expansion process. And Elliot Friedman said that this is probably a really planned thing by the NHL. He said they probably wouldn't have put this out if they weren't given some sort of permission from the NHL, and he expects that, given that fact, that the NHL probably is using this to try and get the Arizona Coyotes to get their act together. But on top of that, it does seem like there's expansion coming in the not distant future, whether that is Utah and maybe another team over the next little while, or whether that is Utah getting a real relocation team, we're going to get some movement here in the not too distant future of either relocation or expansion in the not too distant future. So this is going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. And lastly, here going over to a couple of trade rumors. First, Florida Panthers. It seems like they have, according to some reports I've seen, some interest in Buffalo Sabres tough forward Jordan Greenway. Not overly surprised that they would have some interest in a guy like Jordan Greenway. They like some of the big physical bottom six forwards. Now Greenway, I think at this point in time, sort of established that he's not an overly good middle six forward, but he can be a really decent bottom six forward and definitely lay some big hits. So I could definitely see the Panthers have some interest. I know that the Sabres acquired him for a second and a fifth round pick. At this point in time, I think they'll be okay with just adding like a third round pick for him. So I'm not exactly sure what they would want if they were to trade Greenway, but it's definitely going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. It does seem like Florida has some pretty big interest in Greenway. Like I say, it could probably be fitting like on the third line with a guy like Anton Lundell and maybe Evan Rodriguez or something like that. I could definitely see him be a really good fit there in like the Panthers third line. Be a big physical type forward, sort of be the hard hitter that teams don't really like to face in the playoffs, and would definitely be a great addition there for the Panthers. And on top of that, he's also signed for this year and next year at $3 million. So it will be a little bit difficult to work out cap-wise, but on top of that, I think he'll be a fantastic addition for the Florida Panthers. So I'll have to watch out for that, but it does seem like the Panthers do have some interest in Jordan Greenway, and this is another interesting situation to watch out for. Bolts could be looking at the couple of California teams to add before a deadline. Tampa could be looking at a couple of guys to add. We've talked about this over the past little while. It seems like there have been a couple of reports linking Kailyev on the defensive end and Anthony Duclair on the offensive end to Tampa, as they could possibly be looking to acquire those two. Duclair would be a fantastic fit on their top nine. We know that they've missed a couple of pieces like Alex Killorn and Andre Palat over the past couple of years, so adding a guy like Anthony Duclair at the deadline would be a fantastic addition there for the Bolts. They have to make it work cap-wise. He would be a great addition there for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Sharks would probably want like a second round pick and maybe a prospect in return, so I'm not exactly sure if the Bolts will be willing to do that, just given the fact that they are more of a bubble team this year. But it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. I could definitely see him have some interest, and Duclair is a very good speedy middle six forward, can help on the penalty kill, be a really good power play forward, so I could definitely see the Bolts have some interest there. Lyubushkin's a really solid third pair defenseman. Their defensive depth is not overly great this year. They've definitely had to call upon some of their younger guys like Littleberg and Crozier to be stepping on the defensive end when guys like Chernak and Sergachev are out, so their defense is definitely a little bit depleted this year, so they could definitely use some more improvements on the defensive end. Lyubushkin's in the 5 year of a $2.75 million deal, so it will be a little bit difficult once again to work out cap-wise, but he'll be a very fantastic third pair guy for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Could definitely be a really good playoff performer for the Bolts, so it's going to be just a situation to watch out for. There's no guarantee the Bolts are buying to the deadline, because the fact they are a bubble team and they do have not too much cap space, so it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. But the Bolts seem to do have some interest in Duclair and Lyubushkin, and both guys could wind up finding their way to Tampa. So two California players who are currently linked to the Tampa Bay Lightning. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Going over to the Pittsburgh Penguins, according to people on the Insider Trading video, Chris Johnston was talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins and how there was a lot of talk earlier in the year that GM Kyle Dubas was giving his team till around the end of February, till the All-Star break, to sort of figure out what this team is and sort of figure out what direction he's going. And according to Chris Johnston, he hasn't taken enough time. He said that deadline wasn't exactly 100% set in stone, and that he'll probably take a couple more weeks to decide what this team is. They're still in the bubble. They're a couple of points out of a playoff spot. I think they're like 5 out of a playoff spot. They have a couple of games in hand though, and they're not a completely bad team this year, but also not a fantastic team this year. So it seems like he's going to not just take until the All-Star break. It seems like he's probably going to take a little bit longer, probably until like with a week or two left until deadline, until he figures out what he's going to do, whether he's going to sell or buy at the trade deadline, or maybe even stay pat. So it's going to be a little bit longer for the Kyle Dubas to decide what the Penguins' future holds, but it does sound like it will be happening in the distant future. So it doesn't sound like All-Star break was long enough for him to decide whether this team is going to be sellers, buyers, or standing pat this year, and it is going to take a little bit more time for him to decide whether it's going to be sellers, buyers, or standing pat this year. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. But according to Chris Johnston, Dubas needs a little more time to sort of figure out what the Penguins' future holds, what they're going to do at the deadline. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for there. Going over to LA Kings, they talked about two things on the Insider Trading video about the LA Kings. One, Arthur Kailyev is a little bit frustrated with this situation in LA. He's been healthy scratched a couple of times. We talked about this a little while ago. He sort of maybe wants a fresh start a little bit. The Kings are not overly fond of trading him, so unlike a Philip Broberg, who they also talked about how the Oilers might be open to moving him for the right price. It doesn't sound like the Kings are really open on moving Arthur Kailyev right now, but he's also been healthy scratched a couple of times this year. Hasn't been an overly huge factor in the scoring this year, so losing a guy like that would be awful, but they could also, like I said, move him in a package to sort of get some of the other younger guys like Turcotte, Thomas, or Madden into the NHL, so it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. Kailyev, I think, is a really, really good middle six forward. He's a younger middle six forward, could definitely help some of the younger teams in the NHL. It's definitely going to be an interesting situation to watch out for, but I definitely do think Kailyev could wind up getting moved. I know the Kings don't want to move him right now, but I think if the right price comes along, he could definitely be a guy who winds up getting moved, so that's a situation to watch out for. Also, the LA Kings are not expected to make any big moves according to Pierre LeBrun at the trade deadline, but he does say that Victor Arvidsson, who's close to returning, should be returning at some point in February. The Kings are taking as their own trade deadline acquisition, so I could still see them add like a backup goaltender, maybe like a depth defenseman to sort of strengthen their team for the playoffs, but it doesn't seem like they're making any big splashes this year, and I do think that that's really likely a possibility. They don't have too much cap space, and getting Arvidsson back to improve in that top 9 will be a fantastic addition for the LA Kings. They haven't had Arvidsson, I think, all season. He's been out for a very long period of time, so to get him back in the lineup would be a fantastic win for the LA Kings, for him to play with more and to know. So that would be a very fantastic addition there for the Kings. It sounds like he's nearing a return, and when he does return, the Kings seem to be viewing him as their own rental for this upcoming season. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. But according to the people on Insider Trading, the Kings are viewing Arvidsson as their own rental, and they're going to be keeping him as their own rental, and probably won't do too much big things. While Arthur Kailyev really wants out of LA, and even though he does want out of LA, it doesn't sound like the Kings are overly fond of moving him right now, so that's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. And last year, go over to the Carolina Hurricanes and Jordan Binnington. Could the Carolina Hurricanes acquire St. Louis Blues goalie Jordan Binnington? Now, this is a really interesting trade proposal. The trade is as follows from Rob Ellis, who, like I said, I'm not exactly sure if he has really good connections to the teams, but he does say that these two teams could be talking, and he said that their trade proposal would be as follows. Binnington goes to the Carolina Hurricanes in exchange for a 2024 first round pick, a Flyers 2024 second round pick, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Michael Bunting. Now, Binnington's a really good goaltender. Would he command all of that? I'm not exactly sure. It'll be a decent trade for both sides. The Blues will get 2 really good top 9 forwards and 2 really good draft picks for this upcoming draft. The Carolina Hurricanes will get their starting goaltender that they desperately need. So it would be working out that way. But on top of that, I'm not exactly sure that's sort of the trade proposal that would work. Could Binnington command a first? I think it's possible, given the fact he was a Stanley Cup winning goaltender, and he has played quite well this year. But I'm not going to say it's a guarantee he gets this trade package like that. I think it's quite possible that if you take Kotkaniemi out of the deal, it makes a little bit more sense. If you move Bunting and a first and a second to St. Louis for Binnington, I think that'll be a little bit more of an even trade. I think Kotkaniemi has been a really good fit for Carolina. I think there will be a silly move to move him to St. Louis. And on top of that, I think that'll be a little bit much of an overpayment to try to get Binnington. So I think Bunting and a first and a second might work a little bit better than Bunting and Kotkaniemi and a first and a second for Binnington, but it's definitely going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. Binnington, Carolina, I think will be fantastic. I think he will definitely have a lot better of a defensive situation than in St. Louis. I think he'll be a fantastic starting goaltender for Carolina, but on top of that, the Blues are in a playoff race. I don't think they'll be overly fond of moving Binnington right now, especially given the fact that their other goaltender is Joel Hofer, who's a rookie, so I don't think they want to put a starting role on a playoff run on Hofer right now, so this may be something more of an off-season move for the Carolina Hurricanes. And the St. Louis Blues, I'm not exactly sure if this will happen before the trade deadline, but it's an interesting proposal and it is something to watch out for. Could the Carolina Hurricanes acquire Binnington? Maybe, it's a possibility. Could they give up those 4 pieces? I'll probably say no. I think Bunting a first and a second might be a little more easier to maneuver than adding Kotkaniemi to that, and even then I think maybe that's a possibility of a little bit of an overpayment. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. So could Binnington be moved? I've said over the past couple of years, I think it's possible. Could he get moved to Carolina? Carolina's looking for a starting goaltender. It's possible. Is that the exact trade offer that they could definitely move? I would say probably not. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk about for today. What do you think about Binnington? Does he get moved? Is it possible he gets moved to Carolina for Bunting, Kotkaniemi, a first and a second? I think it would probably be unlikely that maybe a first, a second, and Bunting will be a return that the Kings will be willing to move. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. But Binnington, the Carolina Hurricanes, apparently is picking up some steam. What will Pittsburgh do? Will they sell? Will they buy? Apparently, Kyle Dubas needs a little bit more time to decide for the future of this team. So it'll be interesting to see what he decides. What about the LA Kings? Does Kailyev get moved by the Kings to another team? Does he get his fresh start? Do the Kings make some sort of a big acquisition, or do they wind up of just adding Arvidsson to the deadline and sort of him being the huge addition that they want. Definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Do the Bolts try and acquire guys like Duclair and Lyubushkin? They've been linked to them over the past little while. Duclair's a really good middle-six forward. Lyubushkin's a solid third-pair defenseman. They could be really good players in Tampa, so I could definitely see the Bolts have interest in those two. Could the Panthers try and acquire Jordan Greenway? Really good, physical, hard-hitting forward. Could definitely fit well in the middle six for the Florida Panthers, so it's definitely going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Plus, what do you think about Utah? Does a NHL team go to Utah in the next couple of years? Could they open the expansion process again? Could we see 33, 34, 35, 36 teams? I think it's very likely we could see 36 teams in the next 7 to 10 years. It's definitely going to take a little bit of time, but I definitely do think the expansion process eventually will be opened. And if Arizona is able to find a home in Arizona, I think there's a very likely chance that the expansion process gets opened a lot sooner. Whereas if Arizona doesn't find a home and Arizona moves to Utah, I think it takes a little bit more time to open the expansion process, but I think that eventually they still will. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for. What do you think happens with the World Junior team? I'm not going to make any sort of speculation onto exactly who's going to be punished or exactly who's sort of linked to there, but at least we're getting some more developments in that story. At least we're getting some more clarification, and hopefully in the not too distant future it can be done with and that saga can be over. And then on top of that, what do you think about the injury updates, the waiver updates, and 2 signings we've had? Definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk about for today. Remember to like this video, and if you're like to subscribe down below. Thank you for all your support. I've never been able to do with all of you guys, so don't forget to subscribe so we can hit 250 subscribers, and leave a comment down in the comment section below giving your opinion on all that was discussed in today's video. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I also have a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that, so if you can check that out, I'll leave links in the description below, and I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.